So I don't know, does Paul Bedford need any introduction? But the retention guru, and I must say I've learned an enormous lot from Paul over the years.
Cheers.
So this is member retention, membership sales. I don't think we have a problem with membership sales so much now as, maybe it's more member retention.
I hope you haven't got me in for sales, because it really isn't my strong point.
Yeah, I know, there's not much to say. But hopefully then with member retention, will help us get onto the topic of staff retention and, where we go to with that. So, thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Paul, not in person.
I have to do this all again later, just for you.
No. I'm going up to listen to your tape in my office.
No. Yeah, there's a camera in here somewhere. They'll just be sitting back in his room going, no, we're not doing that. Well, good morning, welcome. Thank you for taking time to attend today. We know that although generally we're out of lockdown, there's still really challenging times in terms of things being back where they were. And I know from the types of businesses that I work with, there's certainly been a pendulum swing from being in complete lockdown. We were completely open, everybody had their businesses running, then we went into complete lockdown and it swung back most of the way. And often when I was during lockdown, people would say to me, I'd be on webinars and podcasts and people would say, what's the future of the fitness industry look like? And I was like, well, one, I look backwards. Most of what I do is look backwards at what happened in the past rather than what happened. I said, but it'll pretty much look like it did beforehand. It won't look that different. And not for the purpose of this presentation, but I'd agree with Matt in terms of if I think I understand what he said, some of the big online suppliers will continue to be online suppliers, but they won't be as big because the situation that they were able to grow in has changed. And I noticed with my clients, and my clients are global, the number of people that were doing their programs online that then stopped doing them online as soon as their clubs opened. The numbers dwindled massively. Does that mean people like Peloton and Apple Fitness and Beachbody and people like that, will they go away? No, because there'll be a consumer market that are attracted to that because of the convenience or the nature of that type of training that's different from the type of people who actually physically want to come into a facility and train. And then there'll be the hybrid. There'll be those people who do both. And I'm one of those. I spend my time, hello.
Sorry, I'm a little bit late. I apologise. I got stuck.
Did you bring a note?
Sorry.
Did you bring a note?
I did. I had a note. Apologies,
Well, I
sorry.
feel like we're back in school, so did you bring a note? No. For me, my passion is mountain biking. My weekly routine is walking and lifting weights, but I've also got a spin bike at home that I do online stuff with, mainly YouTube, follow a class on YouTube. So I think what we'll have as an industry is what I refer to as share of wallet. It's a term used elsewhere, but how much of someone's fitness experience will they use in buildings and how much of it will they do elsewhere? And I think we're actually in a really good position with buildings because lots of people came back and go, actually, as soon as you're open, we want to get in there. Now, we have lost all those people that we let sleep, and that's partly our own fault. And I'll talk about that in a second. But I think we're in a good position. I know we've got challenges. Some of those challenges, as Miranda alluded to, are things like staffing, being available to even come to things like today. But I want to talk about, all right, how do you engage, how do you retain, and then how do you recover members and customers? Now, I tend to interchangeably use those terms, member and customer. Everybody's a customer. Some customers buy memberships. Some businesses only sell memberships, so you can only be a member, if that makes sense. If you're a private health club, you sell memberships. They are still customers. It's just sometimes where I work, some of the operators, they go, oh, we don't have members, we only have customers. And I'm like, they're actually the same thing. So please don't go, oh, that can't apply to us because we have members. Members and customers are the same thing. Retention is the most important thing for growth. Anyone know who that guy is? No, I didn't either. When I saw the quote, and thought, I like that quote. And then I looked him up. His name's Alex Schultz. He's the Vice President of Analytics and Chief Marketing Officer at Facebook. And when I read that, I was thinking, if the Chief Marketing, or the CMO at Facebook thinks growth is based around retention, I'm in good company. Now, I had a conversation just this week with a large trade organisation, and they're setting out all their targets for the next 10 years. And if you've looked at targets in different countries, I've worked with, in America, I work with URSA, which is a trade organisation, if you're not familiar with them. And they've gone through 10 million by 2010, 20 million by 2020, 50 million by 2050. And they keep setting all these targets of how many people should be in the fitness industry. And saying, it's going to take us another decade to get there. Now, I do big calculations and I do a lot of analytics. And I actually said to the people I was working with at URSA at the time, actually, if we kept 20% more of our customers, we'd hit that target next year. But because we seem to get a lot, and we're good at getting new customers, but we also lose a lot, we have to work incredibly hard to keep the numbers just at the same point. So I thought we were in good place. Retention is how long people stay, measured in months. I make that as a statement because that's how we measure retention within the business. Attrition is a measure of how many people left, and it's measured in people. Now, those of you who've seen my webinars or been on any of my trainings or anything like that will know that I don't tend to use the attrition percentage that's very commonly used within the industry. I don't think it's useful as an overall figure. And often I hear the statement, oh, retention's the opposite of attrition. Well, how can people be the opposite of months? One's measured for a measure of people, one's a measure of months. The month between when you joined and when you left. So what's the opposite of people leaving? Question to the audience.
People stay.
Well, that's, no, it's not. It's people joining. Sales is the opposite of attrition. How do you count how many sales you made this month? How do you present that in a meeting? How many sales have you made this month? Make it up if you don't want to tell me. 500. 500 sales. How long do they stay for? Measured in months. How many of those people left? Or how many people left? 1. The opposite of attrition is sales, because you measure people in sales, you measure levers. You should measure lever in sales, present it as levers. You don't tell me, if I said to you, how many sales did you make this month? You go, 20%. You don't turn joiners into a percentage, but for some reason, we've adopted a methodology that worked very well in tennis clubs during the 1970s as a method of measuring attrition in health clubs now. Now, why do I say that? Because in the 1970s, if you joined a health club, everybody joined on the 1st of January. They all paid an upfront fee for the year, and their membership lasted till the 21st of December at the following year, or the end of the year. Then you could measure how many percentage stayed. But now they can join whenever they like, can't they? Why can't they all just come in and join on one day? Make life easy. But so we measure retention generally in months. Sometimes we present it as years, but we can do it in days and weeks. And with the online analysis we do, we also do it in seconds and minutes. How long do you retain someone to an online program? From the beginning of the class to the end of the class. In a real world class, they tend to turn up, start the class at the beginning, and predominantly stay to the end. So they're there for 45 minutes. Online, that's not true. Online, they turn up and they start, and sometimes they get through 9 minutes or 12 minutes. And you can actually track how well that video is doing by how far people get through that program. So this is what's called a retention curve, or it's a survival curve from statistics. Across the bottom, you have the months since joining, not January, February, March, April, May. Month is from the day you joined, month 1, month 2, month 3, month 4, month 5. Up the vertical is the proportion of people still members. So if this was 100 people, it's 100%, but if we call it 100 people, you can see at 12 months here, only 39 of them are left. So the club's lost 61 members in that 12-month period. Now the shape of that curve tells me where the problem is. Because depending on the shape of the curve and where the drops in the curve are, it starts to tell me, actually, here's your problem, and these are the things you need to do about it initially. Now, on the commercial side, everything under the line is money. So that 100 people, the amount of money you're getting from that 100 people over the months is diminishing. Now, the challenge we have within our business is we have people leaving and joining on the same day. Like, someone joins today, someone leaves today. So working out how long people stay can be quite difficult. When you look at that, where do you think the initial problem? Oh, I'm probably giving it away in my language. Where's the first problem? Go and have a guess.
The first month.
In the first month, because actually that almost looks like the steepest part of the curve. In fact, if you get them through the first month in this example, you're probably doing all right for the first 3 months. Then after the first 3 months, it starts to accelerate again and doesn't really start to recover. So the shape of that curve can tell me a lot about your business. Now, I can apply that to all sorts of things, including your membership type, age, gender, products and services. So I can say which type of member stays the longest, which one quits the fastest. Who's ever heard this? You're going to love this if you've ever heard it. 5% increase in retention can result in a 90% increase in revenue. Anyone have you heard that? Sending any marketing material by a supplier that's going, buy our product, we'll solve your retention problem. I see it all the time. Obviously, I'm attuned to it because I'm looking for it. And I'm like, well, who said that? Well, actually, it was this guy. I'll tell you who he is in a second. So, most of you have never heard that, but I see it all the time, particularly in trade press and marketing and in webinars. Who knows where it comes from? If you've never even heard of it, you won't. What business context and who's done the math? Or none of you have done the math. So I'm going to explain. This is Friedrich Reichelt. Friedrich Reichelt is probably more famous for the Net Promoter Score, the 0 to 10 or 1 to 10 score that people use to track. How would you describe it? I don't want to contradict. It's not satisfaction, but
no, it's a heart and head piece.
Yes.
It's about getting into the mindset and the heart of your customer.
Yeah.
And the rate of referral is the easiest that way.
Yeah.
Am I confident enough to refer this organisation based on that?
Do any of you use the NPS or Net Promoter Score? Right, so some of you are familiar with that. Well, that's what he looks like. 20 years ago that came out. In his book, he wrote about retention and increasing the quality of that score to improve retention. And the statement he made was, a 5% increase in retention could result in a 90% increase in revenue. People are like, oh, we'll have some of that. But here's how it works. It was actually done in the banking industry in 1996. So there's a direct relationship between what banking does and what we do. No. Here's your survival curve over 20 years. So we're measuring this in years, not months. And what Reichelt identified in banking was that 50% of their customers have gone within 2 years. Good morning, gentlemen.
Sorry about that. Apologies.
That's okay.
Sorry.
You'll have to sit at the back or at the front. Just be mindful of the microphone for our cameraman friend. So 50% were gone in 2 years, 35% were gone in 5 years. They still held on. Banks were still holding on to 10% of their customers at 10 years. And at 20 years, they were holding on to just 5%. And what his statement's entirely true, because what he said was this: if you can get the people who already stay 10 years to stay 20 years, you'll get a 90% increase in revenue. Not a lot of value for us, although it's used by marketing all the time to try and say to us, oh, if you improve it, 5% change, improve revenue by 90%. And when I ask people, where's that come from? They go, I don't know. In the same book is where the statement comes from. It costs 7 times as much to get a new customer to keep one. It's in the same book, in the same chapter. And how many times have I heard that referenced? And yet I've even got the math. The math is mental. The math to calculate that is wild. And that was, remember, pre-digital marketing. So you might argue, and you could argue in both ways, actually it doesn't cost 7 times as much to get them anymore. It actually costs you more to keep them, but actually keeping them can still drive your revenues and your income through the roof. So that's where that comes from. Here's I made this diagram, so please bear with me. I searched Google high and low for an illustration. Because what I wanted was a river, a waterfall and a lake. And you can get pictures of like Niagara Falls or Victoria Falls, but they just don't do what I wanted it to do. So I tried to draw it in PowerPoint. So if you ever use PowerPoint and know how difficult it can be, that drawing is made in PowerPoint. It wasn't even drawn and photographed. It's a drawing made in PowerPoint. This is what it is: a river, a waterfall, and at the end, a lake. And what I represent here, or what I try and get across here, is where's the easiest place to save someone who falls in the river?
At number 1.
Up here. This is the easiest place to save them. When did it start to get harder? What happens once they go over the waterfall? What happens at the bottom? And that's how I see our industry tackling retention. Now, when I talk about this, big conferences, these sorts of events, I say to them, when's the most important time in a member's life? They go, the first 90 days. And they go, what do you do to retain your customers? We ring the ones who haven't been in and have stopped coming. I said, you might as well hire a clairvoyant. It's not that you can't and you shouldn't try and save people, but actually your biggest effort should be upstream. Let's stop them falling in the river in the first place. I've recently asked a graphic artist to come up with 3 sort of symbols for me. I want a fence, I want a helicopter, and I want a crystal ball or a Ouija board, one of the two. But lots of people, who here has ever had to phone the customers that have left calls? Who would rather clean the toilets than make those calls? I could argue this as well. Cleaning the toilets has a better impact because it actually focuses on this end rather than trying to get people back. But when you start to map out, as I do in the business I work with, what retention looks like within the business, this is just a sort of a general overview. I've got my 4 periods of membership. Acquisition, not something I really deal with, although I work with sales teams. Onboarding your new customers, retaining them, and then recovering the ones where you can. Then I break that down by the physical journey, walking into a building, the digital journey, and also the data curating. Because sometimes you want to build up data on someone over a period of time. You don't just want to, you don't want to do all the surveys and all the measuring and all the things right at the beginning. You want to pick up data as you go along. So it's a little bit like how a lot of the big online, like Netflix and Facebook do it, in terms of every time you use their product, they learn a little bit about you, and it modifies in their algorithms what they then present back to you. An interesting thing I attended recently, we're all sitting in a room, they got us to get our phones out in a presentation, and we all had to Google the same thing. The same thing. And all the different things that came up everybody thought they were going to get the same thing. It was almost like unique to every person sitting there. It was like, oh my God. Except for the paid ads, which came up first anyway. But you want to think about the types of things that are going on. The ZMOT is the 0 moment of truth. Is what the person's bought actually look like what they thought they were getting? Who has ever bought something online and when it turned up? Who's ever bought furniture drunk and it turned up like that? Those little benches, you go, got a bedroom suite for £5. So you have a sales process, but so part of the sales process can actually help with the retention process, and it shouldn't be siloed off. Then it's like the initial meeting, describing your customers. I use a very simplistic form: new, yo-yo, and savvy. New, they've never been in facilities before. Savvy, they're like you, could go into the gym today, get on a piece of that true equipment and start working out straight away. Yo-yo, started, stops, never really maintained exercise. They often get treated like savvy though. Because the question is, have you been a member of a gym before? Yes, I have. Oh, crack on then. Well, actually, if we found out that they've been a member but they stopped and they've been a member and they never really got going, they're probably more like the new people and they need help and support. So we break them down like that, and then we go through and we might be doing different things like goals and goal setting, identifying barriers and motivators and so on, depending upon your staff resource, your technology resource, and your overall outcome. So I've got a client at the moment, I was describing it this morning, their managers in their facilities, and it's in Sweden, do 10 hours a week in the club. They're employed to do 10 hours. And when you're given the challenge of improve retention in our 200 clubs, and our managers only do 10 hours a week, it's like you can't default back to some of the things you've done in the past where you've got a full complement of staff who are there all the opening hours that you've got. So you have to come up with different solutions. So I want to talk about engaging and interacting with your customers for the biggest impact. Because if I tell you this, we do a thing called the top 10 factors impacting retention. Number one is visits. If they don't visit, it doesn't matter what else you do. You can have the best trained staff, you can have the most beautiful facility, the best equipment, all those things. It's like having a restaurant with no customers. Yeah? So visits are number one, you've got to get them to visit. Second one is when they turn up, you've got to interact with them. Now they want to interact on different levels. Usually on the way in, it's sort of almost cursory. Morning. While they're in their place of working out, they want recognition from whoever's leading the session, or a member of staff that might be on the floor, but they don't want to be interrupted. It's interact, not interrupt. On the way out, they're more likely to have a conversation with you to talk about what they've just experienced. And it's a really powerful time to interact with people, particularly if you ask them questions about the experience they've had, because then they're reliving the experience positively. So I reckon there's about 5% of your customers are, I have to be mindful of my language here, miserable bastards. About 5%. Either that or they're really shy, but we can't distinguish between the two. Yeah? About 20% of your customers might be slightly more in Ireland, just won't stop talking. They want to get into a conversation and they want to keep going, and they have gills. So they don't pause between sentences, and there's no opportunity to stop them talking or start talking yourself. The rest of them just want to know what the rules are. Do I say hello? Do I not say hello? Do I talk now? Do I not talk now? If I talk to you while I'm getting off a treadmill, does that mean you're going to interrupt my workout for 20 minutes? They just need to be guided around when's the best time to do that. Now, this slide, that's a lot more complicated, isn't it? This is retention across a multi-site business, and this is just a sample of 9 of their sites. The dotted line in the middle, the red one, the red dotted line through the middle, that is the company average. So here's a business where, at best, they've still got 71% of their customers after 12 months. At worst, it's 16. Now this is a business that says it actually operates exactly the same in all of its sites. Now it could be that within these sites, the membership varies greatly. So we know that younger members turn over much faster than older members, but they're much easier to get. Older members harder to get, but they stay longer. But there's often a smaller proportion of them. So you could have a very successful club with a lot of young members, but your actual overall retention is going to keep, it's not going to be very long, and you're going to keep turning and turning and turning. Whereas a club, you might have a lot of older members and they just never go. In fact, this is called survival analysis. When you actually measure this in a statistical environment, they call that termination. Yeah. And for some where you've got a big old client base, they die. They just literally die. You know, or they're so incapacitated or incapable, they can't come in. But when you look at that now, what's going on with these clubs? You know, they don't get it right from the beginning. If you look at that, those, you know, it's like, what happened? The yellow club, whatever colour that is, they lost 21% of all the people that joined in the first month. Do not survive into month 2. 1 in 5, gone. 1 in 5 of the sales, gone at the end of the first month. And it doesn't really get that much better afterwards. So here what you're seeing is that you can have, and the point I'm trying to make is, you can have a dramatic impact on retention. What do you think the difference is when I visited these clubs that I can notice observationally between the clubs that aren't doing well and the clubs that are doing well? staff interaction. Now, we did a project in England for Fitness First back in the 2000s. And we showed the difference in terms of people who were interacted with, how long they stayed, and people who weren't interacted with. 21% not at 12 months, it was 21% not remembering being interacted with. 57% still there at 12 months. So your staff can play a big resource if you get the interaction right. If you get it wrong, it won't accelerate. And by wrong, I mean is you're talking to people at the wrong time or you're irritating them. It won't tend to make it worse because people then deploy their own. It's almost like those flares going out from a plane that's looking to put off the rockets. You know, you start adopting a body language that is like, yeah, don't talk to me. You know, or like my headphones go in and then I put noise cancelling headphones over the top of them and blinkers so I can't see you. And it's like, no. But it can have such a massive impact. The other thing that this is really useful for is identifying when they stop paying and when they stop visiting. Now, the difference here is, and I know this is a bit strange, you've got the dark blue line at the top is when they stop paying, the light blue line's when they stop visiting. And we actually have to use a slightly different measure because you're measuring between the two lines vertically. Yeah, and we have to take that out to put it into, measure that difference. But often, there's following up on people or making low user calls to people who haven't visited or trying to sell them something. I describe it as like me trying to ring an ex-girlfriend who I haven't spoken to in years and go, do you fancy going out for a drink? I mean, you haven't rung me for a decade. I'm married, I've got kids. Yeah, of course I'll come out with you. Said cynically rather than as a definite, I've got a date. But sometimes you have to watch that because one of the things our industry has identified during lockdowns or when we had lockdowns was we carried a lot of people who were still paying but not visiting. And we were happy to do that because we're like, well, they're sleepers, getting money for nothing. And what happened when we went into lockdown? They went, bye. And I think as Matt alluded to, so a lot of the businesses that were carrying lots of sleepers didn't actually survive the pandemic because the money didn't come back. I think some of the businesses went bust in the pandemic because they were going to go bust anyway, but have used the pandemic as we've got to close. But you don't want to carry lots of sleepers. All you actually need, and I'll show you this in a second, is you just need them coming once a month. Once a month. That's even less than I used to say. But someone who's coming once a month is at least going, well, I'm still using it a bit. And there's a theory in psychology, which I forget what its title is at the moment, but it's the belief that we're going to do more this year than we did last year of something. Who does that in January? This year, I'm going to eat healthier. I'm going to go to the cinema more because I really enjoyed it over the Christmas break. I'm going to go to the cinema more, and we don't do anything more this year than we did last year. But there's this psychological belief that we will do more each year than we did the year before. 5 activities that will keep members longer. Have a strong onboarding process for those that need it. I think a common mistake that I see is if you're an experienced people will go, we're going to design a member journey. It should be member journeys, not journey. And often it's determined by the member, not us. But the savvy person, if I say to the savvy person, our approach is when you join, we're going to do an induction, we're going to walk you around the gym, we're going to show you the resistance machines, we're going to show you the cardiovascular machines, we'll write you an exercise program, we'll do your blood pressure, your height, your weight, we've got this whole package. And they go, yeah, but I need to do functional training, and I've been doing it for 20 years. We actually do them a disservice, because we're taking up an hour of their time to show them things they're never going to use anyway. So we need to be mindful that actually we could group our onboarding processes into New Yo-Yo and Savvy and offer versions of an onboarding process. Not to say you don't get it if you don't, if someone says, yeah, actually I fancy that, they can still have it. But trying to force everybody down through the same thing is not a good idea. It's also resource heavy. And what you want is to put the resource into the people that need the support, not the ones that can crack on their own. You need to interact with the 95% of your members that want to. Obviously, I've kept out the shy ones. But you also, but you need your staff, and I'm not saying your staff can't do it, but you need your staff to be able to walk up to someone they've never spoken to and be able to engage with them. They need to be able to show that they're curious about the person they're there to help. If the person doesn't want any help, they'll make that really clear. You do it in restaurants. Is everything all right with your meal? Yes, it is, thanks. Do you need anything else? No, thank you. But if you do, you'll say it. All right, there are those few people that go, no, it's fine. No. This is disgusting. We're never coming here again. But you want your staff interacting, predominantly on the way out. Now, those of you who've heard me speak before, so I say the same things all the time, because I'm trying to get someone to actually take action on it. On the way out, ask 2 questions. First question, how was your workout today? How was your class today? How was your session today? It gives them an opportunity to express how they're feeling about the experience they've just had. If it was a positive experience, they're going to relive it. It's going to make them feel good. While they're telling us, they're also telling themselves. Yeah? And they walk out with a positive high. If it was a negative experience, it's feedback. Because we asked for it. How was your class day? It wasn't as good today as it usually is. Really? Tell me about that. It's feedback. If they go home to write that as an email or put it on social media, it's a complaint. So you can intercept a lot of the things you have as complaints early on, which actually is a less of a drain on your resource. Because as soon as it comes through as an email, it's like one person's got to read it, then they've got to go to someone else and go, oh, can you, the studio coordinator, get in touch with the class teacher who taught the class on Thursday, because we've got a complaint about the class and the quality of the class. Then it's like, it just takes up time and effort. Whereas by just going, how was your class today? And they go, wasn't as good as normal. What wasn't as good about it? Well, I didn't really like the music. But that could be hours worth of follow-up if it comes to an email follow-up. So get it early. That's question 1. How was your workout session, class, whatever it is today? Second one, when are you in next? You want to prompt the next visit. Visits are our currency. If they don't visit, they don't carry on paying. We need them to visit. Don't let your members fall asleep. I'm going to show you some data on that. Define and audit the day-to-day behaviours. Most businesses I visit have vision, mission, and values. But they don't have any described behaviours. They have all these lovely values that go, we're going to be inspirational, customer-centric, things that aren't actually values anyway. They're just words. And then you say to staff, how are you going to be customer-centric? Oh, I don't know. You actually say, this is what being customer-centric is. This is what you have to do. You have to look at people in the eye and smile at them and say, good morning, how are you? And if they don't look back and smile, you just pretend that they did. You can say what you like in your head. So you have to, but you have to, otherwise what happens is if you're in a fitness environment, and I see it all the time, fitness manager says to staff, walk the gym floor and talk to customers. Or less than that, walk the gym floor. So what do? They go on a walk around the gym floor. Here, that might take you a minute. In some of your sites, that would be like that, wouldn't it? I've walked across, that's it, I've walked across the gym floor. What do you want me to do now? Don't leave it to their imagination. Give them things to do. Go and see if there's anyone's got a birthday today. Go and find out if this is their first workout after their onboarding. Just go and ask them, is there anything I can do for you? So they can say, no, I'm all right, thanks. That makes them feel good. No, I'm all right, thanks. But know that there's an opportunity for support. They often turn it down, but they need to know it's there. Only employ staff that will add value to the business. I'm working with businesses at the moment, some of them, from the descriptions I've heard this morning, somewhat similar to yours. They've got so many open positions that they'd hire a dog if they thought the dog could do the job. And I actually think, I've been to clubs where if you replace the receptionist with a dog, you get a better experience. Because the dog would just wag its tail at anybody that comes in. Why is strong in boarding the first visits? This is a study we did, 64 gyms, 168,000 users, 9 million visits. All right? We broke their visit frequency down. If they visited multiple times a day, we just counted it as one. So we weren't going people who come morning, middle and after. It was like one visit in a day counts as a visit. And it was all individual users by their ID. We grouped into 4 groups: high risk, less than 4 visits per month; moderate risk, 4 to 5 visits per month, that's roughly 1 a week; low risk, 5 to 8 visits per month; and then very low risk, more than 8 visits per month. Of the 168,000, this is what the risk category looked like at the end of the first 12 weeks. Good morning. You're more than welcome. In you come. That's all right. I haven't. End of the first 12 weeks, 45% of the customers were already visiting less than 4 times per month. That's why you've got to have a strong onboarding. That's 60,000 people in this study. 60,000 people who joined are already in the first 12 weeks of membership, they're visiting less than 4 times per month. Another lot, I would say the orange, if you think of it, the orange and the red, both of these groups are high risk for cancelling. These are virtually sleepers after 12 weeks. What does that mean? It means we have to drive our sales and marketing processes harder and harder and harder to get the people to come in. But you're looking, on that, you're looking at large numbers. That was over a 3-year period, but that's still rubbish. This is their retention though. Only over the first 12 months, and it pretty much goes as you think it would go. The high risk are the lowest and the very low risk are the highest. But look what happens at the end. There's a difference here, 35% still there, 58% still there. Remember earlier I said everything below the line is money? Think of the revenue lost. No, think of the revenue lost, 35 to 42%. That's 1 extra visit a month. 1 extra visit. It's hardly going to overwhelm your club with members, is it? Because everybody worries about, when I talk about visits, if we drive up visit frequency, the club will get so packed, it'll be uncomfortable. Get the 60,000 people who are coming less than 4 times a month to come 4 times a month. It'll have a dramatic impact on your business. The very high, don't try and get them into the very low risk group. Don't try and get them from low visit frequency to the highest visit frequency. Just move them up 1 category. This is one of my favourite slides. It's animated. I don't usually animate slides, but I want to reveal it. Lost members by risk by month. So in month 1, 20% of the high risk members had already gone. 1 in 5 are already cancelled. If they're in a high risk, 1 in 5 of the high risk people has already gone at the end of month 1. What about the moderate, low and very low in month 1? Absolutely nothing. Month 2, 28% have now left. 2% of the moderate. And I don't know why I haven't put nothing, still nothing from the very low risk. Month 3, 35% of those people are gone. I'm going to speed this up because I think you've got pattern. Who are the ones we talk to? Who are the ones we talk to? We talk to the ones who are very low risk because we get what's called a virtuous cycle. They come on a regular basis, we get to know them, so we speak to them. Yeah. No different from me this morning, going and talking to generally the people I recognise and know first before the people I don't know. % gone in the first month of the high risk. What is going on with our onboarding? What is going on with actually helping people who are coming to us and say, I've chosen you, I want to use your facility, I'm happy to pay that much money, what do I do now? We go, don't know, I'm not saying it's you. That's the point of it. It's like, crack on. Or we're going to give you an inappropriate onboarding process because we've designed it, and now we've designed it, you're going to do it. It always does that. That's why I don't use animations. Possibly my most famous slide, it's certainly my favourite slide. If I speak to you once this month, the likelihood of you turning up next month goes up by 20%. If I speak to you 2 to 3 times this month, the chances of you turning up next month go up by 50%. If I speak to you on 4 or more occasions, which does require 4 visits, so there's this relationship between visits and interactions, likelihood of you being here next month goes up by 80%. And I think what that might do to you in the last couple of weeks of a month, not that I'm suggesting you hold off your interactions till then, but if someone's on the borders of should I come in, should I not come in, I'm not using it enough, and it's the last week of the month and you have a meaningful interaction with that person that last week, you might only get an extra month out of them, but wouldn't you rather have an extra month than not? Because once they flip into the next month, they're going to make that payment, but it gives you an opportunity to drive more people through. If both reception and fitness staff always spoke to members, we've calculated 44% of cancellations would be avoided. But that's a consistency issue. Consistency. If your presence doesn't add value, your absence won't make a difference. It's what I say to staff. If you're not adding value to the business, we can actually do without you. Some of them get really upset by that, but only the ones who know they're not adding value. Implement an in-club, simple, time-efficient, no-nonsense recovery approach that saves as much as 20% of your levers. This is the waterfall edge part. This is the in-club strategy. There will be strategies you can use. David could talk about some of them, which are more digital. Yeah, but this is when someone infers that they're going to leave. This is when someone comes to reception or comes to your club and says, I want to cancel my membership. Yeah? So it's not the person who just does it at the bank and doesn't tell you. This is you walk in and go, Paul, I'm not happy with the service you're providing. I want to cancel my membership. They say, I want to cancel. Your response is, as if you've never heard it before, really? Now you have to practice that in a workshop with staff so they're comfortable doing it. Because someone walks in and goes, I want to cancel my membership, and they go, really? It's like, you've lost already. So you've got to be prepared to say it as if you've never heard it. And then you say, how come? And the reason you say how come and not why, within language, if you think of what we describe as open questions, who, when, what, where, how, why, who is always a person, when is always a time, where is always a place, how is always a process. There's another one between that and why. What is also always the content, thank you. What is always the content? Why is always a justification? If I ask you a question, why are you late today? You justify it. While you're justifying it to me, you're justifying it to yourself as well. You ask why they're leaving their old club and why they want to join your club, but you don't ever ask them why they want to leave your club. Why do you want to go from Club A? You totally joined Club A and you're coming to join us here. Why did you want to come and join here? They reinforce their decision process. Yeah? Great. Give me another why you want to join here. Just strengthen it a bit more. But when they leave, you go, how come? 50% of your answers will still get a why response. But that's 50% less than them justifying it. Sometimes they come and say these things because actually for them it's the end of their tether and they're not getting any attention, and it's almost that if you don't change your ways, I'm going to leave you. Attention grabber. Like, oh, I'll put the toilet seat down, I promise. But you ask, how come? We then use a survey, and we use various surveys, but it's like, just before you go, we want to get positive experiences from people. Sorry, let me just go back. That's the strategy. Really? How come? It will save 20% of the people who come to your reception say, I want to cancel. That's the strategy. It wasn't anything more than that. That's not 20% of all the people that cancel. Those are the ones who come up to you in the club and say it. Then we use different things to track types of things. Often we'll get someone to complete this, and even when they've completed it, we'll fill it out, we'll put it to one side and go, what's the real reason? Because they're not moving. Because if they were, we should have estate agents within leisure clubs. Because in England, the average number of people that move any 1 year is 5%. It's certainly not 5% of the membership in the health club who are cancelling, who are leaving. No, we're moving. So often we'll ask them the question, but we go through an exit process with them. We don't just let them go, but we also don't recommend you make it really hard for them to go, where they can't find on your website where they go or how to do it. You know, like Virgin Media. Ooh. Try and cancel online at Virgin Media, their cancellation page has always got a 404 error on it. I know that because I had to try and cancel mine. But then I found the head of customer experience on LinkedIn for Virgin. And the daft woman has put her email address under her info. So I waited till a Friday night and I emailed her so I'd share it unless she resolved my problem. Done by Monday. Average length of membership, if you do certain things, if you complete an induction and it's appropriate to you, you can add up to 7 months. An extra who wouldn't want an extra 7 months of membership? Visits twice a week, you get an extra 7 months, but that's a big jump for most of your users if they're using it once a week rather than twice a week. To come twice a week is a big jump. Graduate them up to that. Travel less than 5 minutes will give you extra months. Age over 34 will give you extra months. In fact, in the fitness industry, it always looks the same. Anyone over the age of 35 is old. Because they behave differently. Behaviourally, they're older. They're more fixed in their job, they're more fixed in their lifestyle, they're more fixed in their weekly behaviours. So they become more routine. Your ideal customer is someone who's got the same job and the same pattern of work every week, who comes to your facility at the same time and day each week. So when marketing people say, who's your best customer? How do we identify our best customers? They're actually not the really profile-wise, the sexy ones. They're the ones who've got a routine job, they work the same days, work the same hours, and once they've got exercise into their life as part of that weekly pattern, it stays there. I refer to them generally as, I've got an interview I did with a woman that's called Zumba Night. She goes, Thursday nights is Zumba night, because on Thursday nights I go to Zumba. My husband has to get home from work early to look after the kids, because Thursday night is Zumba night. If he's away on work, he's got to arrange childcare, because Thursday night is Zumba night. It's like Zumba on a Thursday night is more important than her children. Yeah. Which is like most of us as adults, our phones are more important than our children. We will leave our children in a room unattended, but we will not leave the room without our phone. Okay. Then you get to the door and go, where's my phone? Child's there on the floor. So over 35, and with each increment in age, they stay longer. Harder to get, smaller populations, but they stay longer. People who join in the pre-join phase stay longer than people who join once the club's open. Because they bought something that didn't even exist. They bought a dream. So they'll often stay a lot longer, but also their experience of the club when it first opens, it's all new, it's all shiny, the towels are fluffy, the staff are all excited to be open. Again, 2 or 3 visits a week, it goes up, age over 45 and so on, and we've done these types of calculations throughout. If I was going to summarise this, I'd actually ask you to summarise it. What are the messages you've got from me in this session this morning that you're going to take home or take back? I know some of you work here, but take back into your business and go, we need to focus on this. What have you got?
The onboarding.
The onboarding. Can I ask you what your onboarding's currently like?
Not great. It's kind of wishy-washy, really.
Okay.
At the moment. Yeah.
Fine. Oh, well, it's not fine that it's wishy-washy, it's
Yeah.
fine that you
Yeah.
recognise that.
Yeah.
Yeah? Anyone else?
Or adding the question on as their previous gym use onto their kind of application,
Yeah,
you know, so that could be categorised somewhere else.
yeah. What you have to do with your staff though is really make sure that when they hear, yeah, I've been a member of a gym before, that ask about the person's experience. So they don't just go, oh, well, you all know what you're doing then. And they actually go, oh, were you? How was that? How did you get on? Now, the person might sugarcoat it and might go, oh, yeah, it was great. That's down to them. So, you know, I'd be saying to them something along the lines of, well, if you're a member of a gym before, we've got an option where you can either have some support in the early stages of your membership to help you really get going and establish exercise, or we've got something else where you can pretty much get started. Which of those would benefit you most? Not which one do you want? Because they want, you know, most men it will be like, I want the easiest one because I'm already an expert. Sorry, I know in the world of woke that's not the right thing to say, but no men are beginners. They're all intermediates. We start at intermediate. How many men in this room think they're an above-average driver? My point exactly. So think about making sure that anyone who's they ask enough questions to see, do you need support or do you need less support? Cool. What else?
I think auditing the day-to-day behaviours is a very good point, but as to how you can do it with different personalities.
You don't care about personalities, you tell them this is how you have to work. Now there's a route, like if you work for Starbucks, McDonald's, Domino's, you don't get a choice how that burger's made or how that pizza's made. You know, you don't get like Sunday morning, oh, I had a rough night last night, today I'm going to make a Big Mac like this. It's like, that's how you do a Big Mac. Where you let their personality shine is in their interactions, but they have to have processes to follow. And there's sometimes it can start off when you sort of overdo it to start with you're going to do this and you're going to do this, and it becomes too regimented, and then you have to pull it back a little bit. But you have to give them guidelines. You are going to walk the gym floor. You know, the one that I used to have in my clubs was within our business, and this was a club metric that we used, you'd get 3 interactions every visit. You get one on the way in, one where you've trained, and one on the way out. Now we could control that because we had a decent reception area and we had it staffed, so we always knew someone could get a hello on the way in, even if that hello was because they're on the phone, but they always got the recognition. We had reception desks that were low enough that you could actually see the staff, rather than them sitting behind a desk that's this high and they're down here on the phone or turned to an angle because they get the computer screens here and the only way they can talk to someone is to look at the computer screen and they miss everybody going in. So one on the way in, one when they were moving around the building, and the way we instilled that was we had a technique called always be the last. Always be the last person to speak to them. So no matter where they're going, you have to assume that you're going to be the last person that speaks to them today. Yeah? And then on the way out, because they had to go past reception, we had, even our sales guys were great at it. We had only one per shift. How was your workout today? When are you in next? Are you enjoying the club? Why are they asking all those lovely questions? They want a referral. You know, they're doing it because they want a referral. They know not to ask for a referral every single time they ask the question, but they're doing it. I would start saying, what's the things we need to do? You know, I made a list the other day on the train for someone, and I think one of the first one was, I made someone's day. Was the first behaviour I had. So you can go, actually, it's down to you to work out what that's going to be. I made someone's day today while I was on shift. I introduced myself to someone didn't know their name. Yeah. I asked someone who was doing free weights if they needed a spot for a couple of reps. You know, you can actually get your own staff sometimes to come up with some of these because they're the things they want to do. What you have to plan for is they don't do them all with the regular customers, and they do them with the people who are less likely to turn up. Does that help? What else?
I'll take some quite complicated psychology that you made very simple, which was never ask why questions of behaviours when you want change, ask how come.
Yeah.
And that applied across the piece would make a fundamental shift in how people work and how people operate.
Yeah.
Yeah, fundamental.
Who has ever made the phone call? I'm phoning up from Paul's Health Club and we want to know why you haven't been visiting recently. Well, because you're going to do, who's got a member, I have to be careful here, who's got a member of staff that's always late? You put up with them, he's going, what, you mean one? Who's got a member of staff, or you've had a member of staff that's always late? We've all had them. How many of us have ever said, why are you late? And they justify it to us. And while they're justifying it to us, who else are they justifying it to? Themselves. And unless they're penalised for that behaviour, they sort of go, okay, got away with that. Now, I'm not perfect. I still ask my daughter sometimes, why haven't you done your maths homework? And as soon as it comes out of my mouth, I'm like, damn. Because she justifies it. And it's usually my fault. Because I haven't done her maths homework. But it is, I think when you start to, I trained as a psychologist, so my PhD is in behavioural psychology applied to fitness environments. But for probably the last 25 years, I've been interested in behaviour change within fitness and leisure. It's why I went from being a gym instructor to training people to be gym instructors to then going into academia to study behaviour change. Because my argument is if you don't get their head, you don't get their body. On a day like today, which is when I walked in, it was a bit grey and a bit overcast, there'll be people indoors going, well, I don't know if I'm going to go and train indoors today because of the weather. The weather's going to have nothing to do with it. But if it's cloudy, some people won't leave their houses to go and train. But it's to do with the head. So I studied psychology, but language is a big part of psychology. One more. Consistency. Go on.
The analytics.
Yeah.
Not knowing like who's been in, you need this information.
Yeah.
All the time, right?
And you do. And myself and David were having a big conversation about club management systems last night, and the challenge our industry has with having quality ones that can actually do what we need them to do. And unfortunately, a lot of them don't exist. And when you ask them to go, can you provide this? Can't do that. Or, yeah, of course we can. That's a development issue. You'll need to pay. And you're like, no, I'm not paying. I need someone who just tells me. But last visit reports, most club management systems can do last visit reports for the last 4 weeks or the last month. I would draw out a last visit report to see who's not been in. So what we break them into two groups, monthly active users and non-users. Everyone that's a monthly active user, I'd look for those ones who are only coming in a few times. I'd tackle them first. I wouldn't jump to the non-users. Save the ones who are further upstream before trying to tackle the ones who've gone over. Ring them up. Don't do a low visit call. Do a courtesy call. I'm just ringing up. I'm ringing from Paul's Health Club. It's a courtesy call. We're just wondering how you're getting on. If they say they haven't visited, you can talk about it. They know they've not been in. You know they've not been in. You don't talk about it till it comes out of their mouth. As soon as it comes out of their mouth, oh, I haven't been in for the last month. Really? How come? And then they can go, oh, well, what can we do? When were you thinking of coming in next? We know that visits equals retention, but the question, we're too vague often when we're doing the onboarding. We say, how often are you thinking of training? They go 3 times a week because they think that's the right answer. It's almost like, is that your final answer? Do you want to phone a friend? And how long were you thinking of training for? About an hour? Is that the right answer? The questions you should be asking is not how often and how long, it's which days and at what time are you coming in? Which day, what time? Because then people give you blank stare. as they go into their internal calendar. They go, I can come Tuesday at 4 and I come Thursday night at 7 because it's Zumba night. But we don't, we're too wishy-washy with it. We're like, because we want them to say what we want them to say, but it's actually, they want to answer the question because it's the right answer. But we know they don't come 3 times a week. But I wouldn't prompt them with, which one day of the week were you thinking of training? But if they go, I can only come in once a week, you go, great, that's 52 times a year. And we can build from that. As opposed to, and I was a trainer that did it, well, if you're not training 3 times a week for an hour, there's no point in you coming. So 70, 80% of the population went, can't come then.
The language is very important.
Really important. I think we underestimate the power that language can have. And I'll often describe the things that I do as manipulative. But it's for their benefit, not mine. Yeah, I get a benefit, but it's not one way. But there are times when I will make people feel uncomfortable if I think it's going to make them make the decision.
Yeah.
In sales, it's often done as like, oh yeah, but what if you don't join? What will life be like in 6 months' time if you don't start your fitness program now? How fat will you be? I've had some horrific sales approaches to like stick the knife in and twist it and spin it to make people feel rubbish. To go, but if you join today, just think how quickly your life could change. I hope you found this of value. I'm going to be around all day answering questions. Obviously not during other people's sessions and stuff. I have no idea time-wise whether I've run over or not run over.
I don't know, but could I ask a question?
No.
Just to, Paul, just as a matter of interest, when you talk about software club management systems,
Yeah.
and let's say the verbal communication, with I don't know the ins and outs of club management systems at all, but let's say you have a system that provides all the information you need when that member is going.
Yeah.
If then that follows on by text messages or emails or this kind of digital communication, are there studies to show is that as successful as the verbal communication?
It never used to be. It never used to be. So 10 years ago, the interpersonal communication was, well, it still is king. But there was a piece done that if you went into a club and no one spoke to you and then they emailed you to go, oh, we saw you were in the club today, it actually pissed members off. If you knew that I was in the club today, why didn't you speak to me? Now, we're much more likely to respond to digital communications that are prompts. If they're all just sales messages, 24-hour flash sale, it's like, yeah, delete. But actually, we know now, I've worked with different technology companies, some which still exist, some have gone out of business. But there was one that I worked with that decided the fitness industry wasn't for it in the end, and it stepped away from the fitness industry. It still exists. We could predict who was going to quit next month, and we'd get it right 4 out of 5 times. Yeah, and on the time we got it wrong, they didn't quit. So it's not like we missed them; they just didn't quit. And we were able to do digital messages and digital prompts, and I do a lot of design around the language for a digital prompt, when to send it, the timing, and even the imagery that goes with it. And it can have as equal an impact as a person. What they can't do is the nuanced response. When I say, how was your workout today? And you go, that facial expression that us as humans looking at humans can respond to like that and go, they're not saying anything, but they're saying everything. You don't get that because it tends to be one-way communication rather than two-way communication. But I'm building those methodologies all the time with operators in terms of their onboarding communications. Well, I worked with Gold's Gym in America before they sold. So I worked with him, it was actually this week, 3 years ago. Because Facebook's telling me you were in Dallas 3 years ago and this is who you were with. We looked at their onboarding, we looked at their communications. One of the things we were going to do digitally was they have a very strong working relationship with Arnold Schwarzenegger, or they did. Now, Arnold Schwarzenegger is actually famous for his Facebook posts and his tweets and all sorts of things where he just walks, he talks to the camera, or he's in the gym talking to the camera. And we had a discussion with him about doing a welcome message for new Golds members. Because he was associated with them, they were the only people who could do it. And it would basically be, you get a pop-up message and we go, hi, it's Arnold, I'm not doing the accent. Hi, it's Arnold. Welcome to Gold's Gym. I've been training at Gold's Gym for more than 40 years. It's the place where I go to do my exercise. We're glad to see you here. We hope you get everything from it that you're looking for. Now, what do you think that would do if you were able to do that in one of your, so pop up, I got a message from the gym. Hi, it's Arnold. It's like, who would you share that with? Now, unfortunately, because of COVID, the business, which was owned by TNT Holdings, sold it off because they were really panicking about, they owned Omni Hotels and they owned Gold's Gym, and they've been trying to sell Gold's for years. Then they said, no, we're going to invest in it. I came in and helped a team to sort of do a turnaround. We had a massive impact. The value went up and someone came along and went, well, we'll buy it off you, because they had to restructure because of, Matt, what are the classifications for bankruptcy? Is it class 12 and class
7, class 11.
Class 11. Yeah, they filed for what I understand is class 11 bankruptcy, which basically they could restructure their finance, but they were still a viable business. But while they're doing that, someone else can come in and buy them. And someone came in and bought them, so they went off with someone else. But the project we did with them across the corporately owned Gold's Gym, we added 4.75 million to their bottom line in 5 months. And that was with a strong onboarding program. That's a lot of money. And we took their net promoter score from 9 to 29. And we had over 80,000 more 9 or 10 advocates in that 5 months. So you can have a big impact. You know, don't stop selling, keep your selling going, drive sales, drive marketing, but also think, how do I get an extra month, another extra month, another extra month? Because yeah, there is a cost to keeping them, but it's nowhere like the cost of getting them. And the cost is in the time and effort now, not the actual physical cost. Someone touring them around, all the money that goes into the marketing. So yeah, sorry, I've sort of got off, but the digital can be as effective. And like I said, there's the business in Sweden, the managers are only there 10 hours a week. It's all going to be digital. Now, that whole approach I've got to use with them, what's the resource? You've got online. Right, let's crack on then. So it used to be different, but I think it's the nuanced response that you get from a person that's very different. Any others? Last slide then. If you want to get in touch with me, I'm really easy to get in touch with. You either Google Retention Guru, if you're not already on my mailing list, and it's quite substantial. And I applied GDPR. Yeah, I'm not scraping lists anymore. But if you do a QR code of that, you can get in touch with me if you want to talk to me. We do webinars quarterly. We do posts every day, Monday to Friday. Lunchtime, we call them lunchtime lessons. They come out at 1:05 every day, where we're sharing this type of content to people. If you want to get in touch, just reach out and just go, I was at the Maldive, can we have a call? And I'll give you some time. Thank you. I apologise that I've overrun. I think I've overrun, haven't I? I didn't know what time I was supposed to finish, so I'm on time. Have I overrun?
12:17. It's 12:17.
Yeah, but what time was I supposed to
I think
finish?
it was 12, wasn't it?
Okay, sorry. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day. What's next?
So we could have, there's coffee, sandwiches and coffee and tea downstairs in that studio. And then Claire, is Claire here? Okay, but there's also tours of the facility. So if you want, there's 2 huge gyms. So on this floor, there is, just as you walk out here, there was a big, huge running track there. And that's fully now a complete gym that overlooks the running track outside. And then underneath that, on the second floor, up from the reception, there's a gym on that level as well. So they're both cardio gyms with some freestyle functional training. And then in the ground floor beside the Studio One, if you just go a little bit down, there is all the free weight strength and conditioning in that section there, which was actually the strength and conditioning before COVID. There used to be a queue all the way from that room right to the reception. So let's say there were 60 or 70 people in a queue to get into the strength and conditioning studio. So since, I don't know, do you still have the booking system? Yeah. So in any case, when the booking systems had to be put in place, they had, I think, 90 minutes for the strength and conditioning room, for example. And interestingly enough, the people preferred to have the booking system because then they didn't have to do the queuing anymore, right? So they just book their space, and you kept the booking system. So it must be the only, I think you're the only facility in Ireland that kept the booking system. Do you know? Because
there were
it
quite a
worked.
number of UK operators that approached me and asked me and said, and I ran analysis for them because they were interested to know about keeping a booking system, because while they had some members go, we want to come whenever we want,
Yes.
lots of them really loved. There's only going to be 30 people in the gym, we start, but it's again, date and time.
Mhm.
I'm coming on this day at this time and I'm definitely coming, because if I don't, I miss my slot.
We surveyed our members and 70% wanted to keep it.
Yeah.
It was a surprise for us.
So the 70% preferred the booking.
Booking system, yeah.
Can I
And
put
you
a
still have
caveat?
the-
Still have it, yeah.
Can I put a caveat into that? Because it's
Right.
really interesting. Because actually, when you ask them the question,
Yeah.
do you want to keep it? They say yes. But then
They
if
don't
you
use
say,
it.
if we get increase the numbers, do you still want it? No.
Yeah.
Because so they're actually what they're voting for is to keep it restricted to the
Yeah.
number of people in that space, not the fact they've got to book the space. So be quite careful with
Yeah.
how you ask the question and what you find out as a result.
Oh, that's interesting.
A lot of members got quite spoiled.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, especially swimming. You know,
Yeah.
6 people
Yeah.
in a lane, absolutely fabulous. You
Yeah.
know, that's wonderful. But if you said, do you want to keep the booking, but it's 12 people in the lane, they change their
Yeah.
mind. So it's be careful on how you get to
Context.
ask the question.
But David, another question then as well, when we talked about, let's say on the way down here, we were talking about how you could operate your facility with no staff, no staff at all. But for the clubs that, let's say, don't have staff on the floor or don't have interaction on the floor, what are the statistics or the retention or is the retention better in the clubs that have staff interaction at all the touch points? Or is it the same as the ones that have, like a budget club, for example, that don't have any hello, goodbye, nothing?
I can't answer that.
Yeah.
No,
But Paul
I-
would be better placed.
Generally, if you've got staff and they're doing an okay job, if they're doing a rubbish job of interacting, you know, you've got to be able to measure two things. Are people staying? And are they staying because they're being interacted with? Not because you've got staff or not got staff. Because you can have staff and they don't speak to people. So again, with the Fitness First study, the question we asked was, do you remember being spoken to or not? Rather than, did someone speak to you? Because the staff can be adamant and go, I speak to everybody. But it has no impact. Their presence doesn't make a difference. So you have to measure the two things. But there's another feature to it, which is, what am I expecting from a club that has no staff? I'm not expecting the interactions because there are no staff, but I've made the decision on joining that that's an acceptable thing going forward.
Sure.
I know when I've spoken to one of the big operators here in Ireland, is that it costs 7 times, and they go, oh yeah, but we've got this and we've got this and they've got all of the facilities, you know, beautiful facilities and lots of staff, and they equate all of that to being part of their retention. I'm like, no, that's who you've decided to be as a business. You can't count the fact that you've got a restaurant as a retention tool, because the restaurant is what you decided in the positioning of your business, who you are. You know, it's like, you know, and it would be similar if Matt asked me, could I show that this treadmill retains more people than this treadmill? Well, in most clubs you don't have a difference. You either have, like here in Europe, it tends to be one brand. You can't separate it out like that. You have to be able to go, you know, I'm flying home Ryanair. What am I expecting? Not a lot. But I know I'm not getting a lot because of what I paid. Whereas if I'm one of the types of people that's prepared to pay €140 a month or more for a membership, I expect more. I still get fed in a 5-star restaurant the same as I do as a street van. They both feed me, but their positioning within the market is different.
Can I follow up on that point? Because a lot of the retention data that you're talking about there is based around interaction, staff interaction.
Yeah,
But you kind of
it was
mentioned
today.
Yeah, but you kind of mentioned at the beginning that there's other factors why people drop off that 10%. And
Yeah.
the chart you showed where 4 of the clubs dropped off, and
Yeah.
we talked about interaction being a key indicator there. But it could also be, or what is the statistics around that experience in terms of customers joining to get access to a pool or to a gym and then not receiving that experience because the pool is too busy or not clean enough, or the equipment is broken, or there's not enough treadmills, they're having to wait, like we heard from freeways.
Yeah.
So the other factors outside of
We group
staff
them,
interaction.
we group up, but so there's lots of different things there. We group them into one category called discontent. And there are 9 things higher up the list that are more likely to keep people or affect retention than discontent. So overall, you can have a big impact on a lot of members with other things. Yes, it has an impact. There was work done one time saying, if the gym's busy and you can't get on a piece of equipment, people will quit. When you drive down into the data of that, it's males 20 to 25 who can't get on free weight benches that will say they will quit. And again, as David's just pointed out, they say they will quit, but they don't. So the reason I showed you that multi-site was because that's a franchise business where everything's meant to operate the same, and it doesn't because they're not interacting in the way that they're supposed to.
Out of all the factors around retention,
Visits first, interaction second, programming, which is a combination of your equipment and what you offer to people, they're the top 3. Easy to remember, VIP. Then it's Group X, but that also falls into programming. Why is Group X lower down? It used to be at 8, now it's at 4. Why? Because so many people book their classes, we actually know where they're going in the club. It was lower down in the past because we didn't know where they were going. We knew they were in the club, but we didn't know if they were going in the pool, the gym, or a studio, because once they were past reception, they could go where they like. Now so many clubs are able to capture the data of people booking classes. We do have to make the assumption if they booked the class, they turned up, which the majority of people do the majority of the time. So we can move Group X size up. What's driving Group X to be a good retainer of customers? Same day, same time, quality of teaching, quality of music, it's multiple faceted. It's not just Group X. If you got everybody to do Group X, would they stay longer? No, because there's other things involved. But it's not, I think probably the date, the time and the social aspect are probably the most important things. Then it's actually the quality of teacher and the quality of the class. Which might sound a bit, and there'll be lots of suppliers of Group X size programming that will go, if you do our program, people will stay longer. I've analysed their data. I don't see it. But that franchise group that I looked at, I showed you 9, they have 666 different class types for a franchise. It's not a franchise. Do they all behave? No. But if you track it by day and time, you get better retention. And if Group X size retained everybody Group X size says it's going to retain, you'd never get in a class. Because people just wouldn't leave, but there are always new people going into a class. So where are they getting the space from? Who stopped coming to let them come in? So it goes visits, interaction, programming, Group X size, social, age, membership contract or membership type. Last one is inductions. And inductions is only so low because we can't get any data on who's had it and who's not. We can see that those who get it, and that when we can do those studies, massive impact. If I come to you and say, can you tell me who had an induction and who didn't? A lot of operators just shake their head down, no, we can't. Or they've got the data but can't get it out of their system. There's one more. it'll come back to me. Otherwise I've got to set up the whole presentation again because it's on another slide. Yeah, go on.
Have you any thoughts on how you feed back that information to your staff? So the data's there, you know how many joined, you know how many left, you know if the business have increased, you know how many on mass visits, you have all that. But setting
So I'll tell you the way I do it.
a realistic KPI that they can relate to and say, oh, I was part of that. Because when you have a large staff, it's kind of like, oh, well, that wasn't me.
Yeah. I think when, depending on who you're talking about as staff, because that's a very big term,
Everyone.
if it's management, we do financial numbers. If it's less management, more for customer facing, we talk about the experience they're providing. Net Promoter is a good way of doing that. Customer satisfaction score, length of stay scores. You know, that's another way of doing it. But I'll be going, you know, if I knew that the average length of stay in a club was 7 months and I said to the team, you know, we want to drive that up, let's look at the things that we know work to drive that number up. Because obviously it's going to show how valuable you are. If you're showing me how valuable you are as a member of staff because you're able to get them to move from 7 months to 8 to 9.
And have you any thoughts then on regards incentives and rewards for either hitting them or?
This is really difficult to do because you have to be able to know your numbers. The last club I worked in, we did for our gym team. We tried to do it for everybody. We couldn't. We had to find other incentive schemes for them. We knew that in the gym that I went in to manage, the average length of stay was 6 months. We had 3,000 members. We had 5 fitness staff. We split the 3,000 up so they all had an equal share. We said if that person's in your share, if they stay month 7, we'll give you £1. If they stay month 8, we'll give you £1. Every person you can get an extra month beyond month 6, you get £1 for that month. So if you get your 600 all to stay for 7 months, in addition to your wages, you get £600.
That's constantly rolling. You're still
Yeah.
getting people joining. So.
Yeah, but there's also you're losing people, so you never really get the 600. But actually, just to be good at doing your job and keeping people into the flow, it keeps them longer. Now, when I left the club, they took it away, and the staff that they had that were really good at it went with it because they were not. I think more out of a begrudgement of like, we've done this for you. Now the club was charging £35 a month per membership. It had some on cost, but actually, what was the cost of retention? It was £1 a month per member, which they gave to a member of staff. So they retained their staff as well, or we retained our staff.
It's trying to get a buy-in to make them realise that they are in some way responsible.
Yeah.
Not that I'm part of a big team and I'll Paul will do it anyway.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's called pluralistic ignorance.
Yeah.
When you think someone else is going to do it. That's why we had that programme of be the last. You're not the person that says, oh, there's someone falling over. Well, one of you will ring an ambulance. It's like my team would have jammed the switchboard because they all would want to be the person that rings the ambulance because that was their mentality. But you have to build that up over time. Give them small tasks. You know, just say hello and goodbye to everybody that comes through the door. Then add the when are you in next? Then add the be curious about their experience this time. Then add the walk the gym floor and talk to people. Add those little things and say, people aren't going to get their results if they don't visit. A measure of whether you're effective at helping them get their results is whether they visit or not. Yeah, there is a share of that at the member as well. Sorry, I've gone on a bit. Can we go and get food and coffee and break? Because even I need the toilet now. I've got to that point, I'm not standing up unless I'm going to.
That studio that we were in this morning downstairs, that's Studio 1. And then have a walk around as well, you know, by all means. So make sure you go to